Hi again, my friends. Thank you for tuning in to another video here from Mad About Madeira. And here are my dirty glasses. Just take them off for a while, as I want to talk today about a topic. I've touched on some of these things already, but the question here is, why does a place like Madeira appeal to me? So today's going to get a little bit more personal. Well, personal in terms of a little bit more about me, which is what I'm going to talk about today. But first of all, need to let you know that this here is a picture of Madeira, as you can see, and this is also a picture of St. Kitts, the island where I was raised. It's not where I was born, but it's where I was raised. Both of these islands, Madeira and St. Kitts, last time I checked, I could be wrong, they're roughly, I know they're over 3,000 miles apart from one another, with St. Kitts being southwest of Madeira across the Atlantic Ocean in the Caribbean region. And I look at the two islands, and right off the bat, just by looking at the pictures, you can tell one of the reasons why it would appeal to me, Madeira that is because both islands tend to look quite a bit alike. Now Madeira is much larger, but at first glance, just by looking up, you just can't help but notice the topography, the mountains, the way that it looks. And there's some other pictures like this one that shows you the coastline of St. Kitts and how it looks rather similar to Madeira. I wouldn't say it is as elevated, but it's elevated enough. Both islands have this look where they just seem like they just shot up from the ocean, and they're elevated above the coastlines. Again, Madeira tends to be higher in elevation around the island. St. Kitts, at least, you do have some areas that slope down to the coastline. But right off the bat, that's one of the first things that appealed to me about Madeira. When I get there and I look, I'm like, wow, it reminds me a lot of St. Kitts, where I grew up as a little boy. But the reverse is also probably true, in terms of when my great-great-grandmother, my Madeiran great-great-grandmother, and my Madeiran great-great-grandfather on my mother's side, when they came to St. Kitts back in the late 1800s, I wonder what went through their mind when they looked and they saw this island. A part of me is saying or believing that they looked and they said, wow, this place looks a lot like home. Mountains hidden in the clouds, the elevated coastline, green all around. And I want to believe that they felt a sense of, it's similar. It's like where we come from, you know, maybe a little warmer, but it's like where we come from. It wasn't like they left an island and they went to like New York City or you know, something along that line, where the landscape was entirely different. They left from an island and went and immigrated and settled on another island, St. Kitts and Nevis respectively, right next door. So I've always wondered. But the interesting thing is, while I was growing up there in St. Kitts, I grew up not too far away from where my great-great-grandmother settled. Again, growing up there for the first 8 years of my life in St. Kitts, I knew nothing about this woman. Didn't know she existed, knew nothing about her, did not know her name. This is something, of course, I've found out within the past 15 years or so, who my great-great-grandmother was, and that she was from the island of Madeira, and her name being Maria de Jesus, or de Jesus, however they say it there in Portugal. I was not aware that she was basically, living in the town next to me. And in that town, which is known as Cayon on the island of St. Kitts, it's on the north, I guess you can say the northeastern side of the island, or north central area of the island. I was not aware that that was a community where a lot of Madeirans settled when they came to St. Kitts. It seems like that's where the Madeiran community was. So it makes a lot of sense that my great-grandfather, my grandmother's father, who was the son of this Madeiran woman, was born in Cayon. And that's where he lived, and that was his base of operations, so to speak. And then he traveled and he moved about. And I think my grandmother's mother and him work at the same factory in Cayon. And, well, you know what happened there to produce my grandmother, who then ended up living in a nearby village. So I thought this was quite interesting to have found out later on in my lifetime. Well, in my adult life, I would say. But now, that's one of the things that appealed to me about Madeira. The other thing that I consider when it comes to them, I always look at what were the push factors, what pushed them away from Madeira. But on the other side, what pulled them toward an island like St. Kitts. Now, if you followed my other videos, you would have found out by now, and I don't really want to go all over it again, but you would have found out that in 1834, the British ended slavery in their empire. And where they had a lot of slavery going on was actually in their Caribbean colonies. Jamaica, St. Kitts, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent, Antigua, I think I mentioned St. Kitts and Nevis already, Anguilla, those various islands, Dominica, that's where they had slavery. When they brought that slavery to an end, a lot of the Africans that they had enslaved on these plantations walked away, walked off, went to try to find other things to do. Some of them stayed, of course. But then the British had to replace that workforce. And so they turned to Portugal, which was a long-standing ally of theirs, and they realized that Portugal had some issues. They realized that Portugal had some issues with their islands offshore, notably Madeira. There was civil unrest, economic turmoil, and England apparently knew this because a lot of British people used to go back and forth from Madeira to England. And apparently they knew how depressed the place was during the 1800s or around that same time. And England appealed to Portugal and said, hey, can we get some of these people, put them in contract to go and work in our but to go and work in our British colonies. So in that crowd of people, Madeirans, who did take up this offer and travel to the Caribbean islands, were my great-great-grandmother on my mother's side, on my father's side, and my great-great-grandfather on my mother's side, Madeirans who traveled and came down. So the push factors would have been all the economic turmoil, the religious tension, all the problems going on in Madeira during this time, and the pull factors would have been, hey, you can go to this place, you can work in contract, and you can do much better, at least financially, than you're doing here in Madeira, where the whole economy is depressed. At least here in these Caribbean islands, there's work to be done. The British are willing to pay you. They're willing to pay your passage to go over there. And after 7 years, you can return back to your home country, or your home island. Well, of course, none of them did, as far as I know. They never went back to Madeira. And if they did, I knew nothing about it, but I know that they both died, respectively, on Nevis and St. Kitts. So I look at it, push and pull factors. So here we go, well over 100 years later, 150 years later, basically, I find myself in a similar situation where I have push factors just pushing me to want to leave this country, and pull factors that pull me over to a place like Madeira. The push factors, you've heard me mention them already, and many people on YouTube have mentioned reasons why they've left the United States, why they want to leave the United States, why they're staying away from the United States. Well, for me, with us visiting Madeira, in 2022. And if you remember what I said before, when we went to Madeira, I was not even aware of all the hype that was going on about Portugal. I really wasn't. You know, I did hear people talking about Portugal. I saw a couple of videos here and there, but I did not know it was a thing. I did not know this was going on. We went over there just out of curiosity. Hey, we found out, my wife and I, you know, because she also has ties to Madeira, did our DNA test, popped up the oral traditions that we were, the oral history that we were giving about our families, that they started out in Madeira. We were like curious, and it was just like, hey, let's do something different. Let's go, instead of going to Cozumel, Cancun, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, why don't we go to this island, Madeira, that supposedly we have some kind of link to? So we decided to go. When we went there, we noticed certain things. So again, we didn't have outside information, so to speak. We're just going on our own. So it wasn't like we looked it up and it's like, well, everyone is saying it's peaceful, everyone's saying it's this. We didn't do that. We went over there and just observed these things for ourselves. And when we came back and found out, after I started watching a lot more videos, it was like, wait a minute, these people are agreeing with exactly what we experienced, what we saw. So we noticed the beauty. We noticed a sense of safety. We noticed a sense of community. We asked questions about schools and the healthcare, and you know, we were just blown away by the differences, you know, where over there we just felt more sense of just being complete, you know. But back here in the United States, it's so many things that's going on. One of the big problems that I have, and I have been living in South Florida for a total of about 20 some odd years, right? I lived here twice. This is my second time living here. I came back in 2020. I was gone for some years in between, but overall, if you put all the years together, over 20 some odd years, starting back in 1987. And while there've always been stories of crime and murder, and of course in the 80s you're talking about Miami with all the cocaine stuff that was going on down there, so yeah, it was a madhouse down there. But I wasn't living in that area. I was living north of Miami, so you would hear some things here and there, but it was always kind of relegated to like the rough neighborhoods around, which I didn't live in. But one of the things here that I've been feeling so much of late, I just feel much more fearful. I just feel much more nervous, much more anxious. Like on any given day, something can happen to me. It is a true fear that I have, which I didn't have 20 years ago. You know, while some of the biggest stories may make the news about murders and so on, I tend to look through some of the local news, the local little news, our local, because everything is on the internet now, you know, so like the little local stories. So while you might hear about a murder in Miami or something down in Fort Lauderdale, I would look up and I would notice, like in my little city, in my city and around the area, you just look up and you see like the blotters that the police put out, and I look up and I see car theft, burglary, car stolen, burglary, car stolen, attempted rape. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, wow, you know, we live in a gated community. And even though that's not, you know, it's not entirely like that. I mean, of course it may discourage people because they can't just walk into the community. I mean, they can, if the gate is open, they can walk in. But it's not like they can just walk in off the streets and just walk right in, or see something from the streets and notice something in there that they want. But down the road from me, I look up, there was like a streak of like a bunch of car thefts in there, you know, like 3 lights down from me in another community. And I'm looking at these things and I'm just like, really? Is that what's really going on? Then I saw a news story the other day where there's no explanation to this, and these are the ones that really scare me. There was a guy driving on the highway, don't know what was going on, ramming into cars, and decided to shoot 4 bullets into one particular car. I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was an argument prior. I don't know if he was driving erratic. I don't know whatever happened, but he fired 4 shots in the car, ended up killing a teacher who had nothing to do with what was going on. Shot the teacher, killed her. But found out that early in the day he also shot someone else on the same highway. I think that person survived. Why? I haven't been giving a reason yet. Those are the ones that scare me, because every now and again you will just hear about a random murder or a random attack where you're just minding your business and somebody that's having a bad day just decide, I'm just going to shoot at somebody. In some other state here the other day, they were showing a video where the suspect or whoever he was driving with were just driving through a neighborhood, window down, and just firing shots at houses. Just firing shots. So the person is holding the gun, and the other person, I guess, is driving, is aiming the camera from behind the person and going through a community and just aiming outside. Pow! Pow! Just shooting into homes. Why? Why? That's the randomness of, oh my goodness. Those are the type of things that just terrify me. So you could be driving on the highway. Another thing that seems to happen down here pretty often. You're driving on the highway, minding your own business. You may just look at somebody too hard, and the next thing you know, they're ready to shoot. Those are the things that just scare me. Another community nearby, guy comes out, sees some guys breaking into his car or trying to steal his car. He comes out. You would think in the past what would happen, hey, we're caught, let's run away. No, they decide to turn around and shoot the guy, kill him, and take his car. Another story down in Miami that I saw, it happened a few months back, but they were showing, I guess some surveillance video was released. Guys driving down the street at night, and I guess they were riding down the road and looked over and saw a guy walking the sidewalk with a chain that they wanted. I guess they noticed him. So you know they were out for trouble from that night. They were looking to rob somebody. Saw the guy, got out of the car, got into a confrontation with the guy. I didn't see the guy resist. It looks like he gave them whatever they wanted, and I guess he started walking away. And one of the guys went and grabbed him, turned him around, I guess ripped the chain off his neck and just shot him 4 times, killed him. One of the bullets hit him in his head. From right in front of him, just stood up in front of him, just fired 4 shots into the man's body and killed him. That kind of thing worries me. So I could be walking down the street, which I don't really do much walking, but I could be walking down the street. I could be at Walmart at night, coming out in the parking lot, and somebody sees me and want what I have, or somebody sees my car and decide they want to steal it. That's one of the push factors right there. I just don't know. I may be at the gas station trying to fill up. That's another thing. I may be trying to put some gas in my car, minding my business, and somebody just rolls up to me and like, hey, I want your car, or get out of your car because I want it. You don't need it. I want it, and I'll shoot you if you don't give it to me, or I'll shoot you and still take your car. That's a huge push factor. Do I expect to experience anything like that in Madeira? No. Can it happen? Of course, all things are, possible. How likely is it to happen? Probably not likely at all. But over here, that could happen at any given moment. Any given moment. There are people always watching you. They will look over and like, hey, he has a white car. It's this model. That's what we want. We need parts. That's what we want. We need to ship some cars overseas, steal some cars and ship them overseas. He has one of those cars that I want. They don't care. They just don't care. So that's one of the push factors there. Other push factors include things like healthcare. I'm not some young spring chicken anymore. I'm getting older. Retirement age. I'm closer toward that than I was when I was 20. So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm healthy. I've been fortunate. But that could all change in a minute. That could all change overnight. Hopefully that may not happen for the next 40, 50 years. But if any of that happens and I need health care, I need to be taken care of, I am looking at, as a matter of fact, even now, sometimes I think about, I need to go to the doctor for this, or I need to go check on this. I've been healthy, but, let's go do this, let's go do that. What's the first thing that comes to my mind? The amount of money I have to pay. You may have insurance, and it's like, and things have changed so much. You have the insurance, like, I have insurance. You go to You go to the doctor or whatever, and the first, well, your insurance doesn't really cover this, and it really doesn't cover that, and it doesn't really cover this. So yeah, it covers 2% of this, and you're still getting some big fat bill in the mail. Went to the dentist's office after I came back from Madeira in 2022. Go in, hey, what's going on? Let's see, whatever. Of course, you're going to try to make as much money as they can. Well, here you need a couple of crowns. Here, I think we need to put a bridge, if that's what they call them. And I think over here we need to do this, and I think we need to do that. And look at this x-ray over here, and this and that, and whatever. This is all that you need to be done. You could get all this done, and you could be taken care of, so you can just move on into your older years and have good teeth and so forth. Okay, doc, so what's the bill? Okay, well, this will cost you about $8,000, just $8,000. Like what? You know, I go to Madeira, I ask the same question over there. Oh, that'll probably cost about $1,500. That's it? Yeah. So when I talk about push factors, those are just two. Then the other thing about it is that my wife and I, neither one of us are very materialistic. We are both somewhat jaded by this whole American individualism. It's all about me. Hoard. What can I get to show off and show the world that I have? Keeping up with the Joneses. Wait, you don't have this? Oh, what? You know, here in Florida, where I am, and even in the Virgin Islands where I am from, because of course, they are U.S. Virgin Islands under the U.S. flag. It is almost like an embarrassment to be seen walking on the street. If you're walking on the street, oh, he doesn't have a car. He doesn't have a car. He doesn't have a car? You know, like, what's wrong? He's walking? He has 2 legs and he's walking? What's wrong with that? That means he's poor. He's not well off like me. Look at me. I've got me my car. I've got 3 or 4 of them. Status symbols over here. That's what it's all about. And I go over to a place like Europe, and I just love to just see the people just gathering out in the streets, sitting down, having coffee or whatever. It's like, you know, here you can drive down certain communities and like you don't see anybody outside at all. Even the parks. We have some beautiful parks here. You go to the parks and the parks are empty. Just empty, unless somebody's having like a little, unless they have a little playground in there where people can take their kids. Or they're having like some little party or something in there. For the most part, the parks are empty. Big spacious areas. Don't see anybody out there. I mean, of course, Florida is brutally hot and it's always raining in the summertime. But yeah, you just don't see people out there. Whereas we went into, when we went to Portugal, we went to an area known as Belém, I think it's called. And we're down there, we're at the park, and there are people all around. The public transportation, people moving back and forth, the excitement of seeing all of that. It's something like New York City, I will admit, without all the craziness that goes on up there. But the energy of just watching people moving back and forth, the interaction, something like that I actually did love. I loved walking down the street and just seeing all the people just there, hanging out, having coffee, sitting down in these little sidewalk cafes. That really, really appealed to me. So that's another draw that I love. The individualism over here about hoarding, and it's so you feel pressured to keep up with whatever. You know, sometimes you're like trying to ward it off, and every now and again it's like pulling you, but you gotta have this, but you gotta have that, but you've gotta have this in order for other people to think that you're this and you think you're that. And sometimes you're sitting there and it's like, stop. No, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of this overwhelming consumerism that we have over here. Grab, get. It's this holiday, buy. Don't want to be a part of that. I prefer the way that I see it over there. So I'm not going to go into all the details about all the push and pull factors. But again, the pull factors, as I've just mentioned, and the push factors from over here are all considerations right now. Doesn't mean, because of course I'm going to go over there and I don't want anyone to think that we are disillusioned, that we're going to go over there and everything is going to be a bed of roses and everything is going to be fine. Trust me, I've known and we've heard about the bureaucracy over there. There's going to be waits. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. And I know I've spoken about the fact that my wife is far less patient than I am. But hopefully she stands by my side and let my patience deal with certain things as opposed to her impatience. But I guess after a while, this will be something that she'll be able to acclimate herself toward and realize. And once we get settled in, we can. We also do know that there are times there's going to be a honeymoon period, and after a while, because my wife had never lived in Florida. I lived here before. I brought her down here. And I wouldn't say the honeymoon is over. We love the area. We really do. But it's just the craziness that's going on. That's one. Number two, the political climate in this country. Everything, every word is a trigger for somebody. You know, everything is going on, and it's just craziness. The other thing about it is that even though I was born in a U.S. territory, I don't have that attitude of that obnoxious American. My wife isn't either. I don't go around the place beating my chest. I'm an American, and I got to stamp my flag, and I've got flags in the back of my car, and like, I'm a patriot. So you know who I'm talking about when I refer to that. We're not a part of that. Not a part of that. America! And we're not a part of that at all. No interest. Don't care for that kind of stuff. Want to get away from it, actually. Sure, I know there are people that love the country. I know the country does have some good things about it. But it's so crazy that in this country, it's gotten to the point that when I do see someone waving or flying an American flag, I hate to say this, but it's almost like you can almost guess that, you know what, they're going to have some kind of racist views. They probably hate immigrants. They're probably homophobic and whatever else goes on, and they love some orange guy walking around the place. You know, I'm not saying everyone who does, but when you see it, it's so crazy that you see that flag and it's supposed to represent a country, but then you look at it and you also realize it represents an attitude, and an attitude that's not always endearing. That's like, you know, it's like the obnoxious American. And there is something that I always will remember with the last guy who was in the White House. He goes over to Europe, and the epitome of American obnoxiousness. He goes and he pushes everyone out of the way. Get out of my way, get out of my way. And he puts himself up to the front, and he's fixing himself like, we're Americans, we're supposed to be up to the front. I'm an American. That's what my citizenship says. That's what my passport says. But just seeing that, I was like, there's the problem. There is the problem. And there is a problem I don't care for. That's another thing I want to get out of here for. Because here in South Florida, every now and again, I hate to say it, but you see that stereotypical guy. Big truck. Got a bunch of flags all over. Big whatever. One guy. Last year, I think it was, or the year before, there was a tropical storm going through here. There's a weatherman doing his job on the sidewalk, and it was flooded, you know. So he's standing there. Most people are going through the water in their cars because it was flooded, going very slow. So the weatherman is there talking. But one goofball decides he's going to come flying down the road in a big truck with the big wheels, big American flag, big Make America Great Again flag on the other side. And he decides to fly through the water. Seen the reporter there. Splash the guy with water all over. Flies down the road. When you look, you see him on the other side coming back up again. Splashing water all over the place. Like a big goofy kid. I've got to be obnoxious. Because this is America. God, I just cringe at stuff like that. So I want to leave all that there. And I do know that a lot of Europeans look over and see that, and that is what they think of a lot of Americans. They're dumb. they're and I'm not saying, of course, everyone here in the United States are that way at all. I'm sure those people are in the minority, but they're a big enough minority that are out there, and they're very vocal. And they give off this representation. This is what America is really all about. Well, those people, they're push factors. I want to get away from them. I want to be in a place where, not again, I'm not saying that Portugal doesn't have their issue, or Spain, or France. They sure do. But I prefer to be in a place where there's more sense of community. Instead of this, America, I'm an individual, and why should I help out those people over there? They don't look like me. I don't want to be a part of that. Want to be a part of community where you know your neighbor, you can talk to people, you can feel comfortable around them, and not just, here you live in this country. I mean, my neighbors, I don't know them. I don't even know their names. I've been there for 2.5 years. They've introduced themselves. I've already forgotten their name. I've never been in any of their units. Never gone in there looking for anything. They've never come into ours. And that's just pretty much the way it is here. People mind their business. You don't know what people next door are involved in. Because, again, this place is crazy. You could be in your place upstairs and the people right downstairs have a crack farm down there for all you know. You could be minding your own business and there's a whole child kidnapping ring or sex ring going on next door. It's this kind of craziness that you have going on over here. I don't want to be a part of any of that. So I don't want to go any further, and this is more turned out more to be like a rant. But again, I think back about my great-great-grandparents and the push factors that pushed them out of Madeira and the pull factors that drew them to the Caribbean. And now it's the reverse. Now my wife and I have push factors that are pushing us out of here and pull factors that are pulling us to a place like Madeira. I've always found it fascinating that they made that trek across the Atlantic Ocean by boat. And it's because of them, in part, why my wife and I are here today. And now we are trying to make the reverse now. The reverse migration. To leave from here on this side of the world, 2 Caribbean nationals or 2 Caribbean folks who are products of those people from Madeira, and now we're trying to go back to where they came from, where they never went back to. And I've always visualized it as us going back to where they came from, and it's like we're taking their legacy, taking their spirit, and taking it back home to the island they once lived on. So thank you so much for tuning into this video. Sorry about the rant that I went off on. I know it might offend some people who may be supporters of a particular orange person out there. But again, I just don't like that I don't like that vibe. I don't like that aura. I don't like that whatever. That obnoxious American thing bothers me. Don't care for that. But again, I want to thank you. You can like, because if you do like the video, okay, a genuine like, it helps out with the algorithm for this video to spread. And you can also subscribe, and you can also go ahead and share. Sorry about sounding nasal. I've been dealing with a cold for the past couple of weeks. My throat is dry right now, a dry cough that I've been dealing with. But I really appreciate you for staying all the way through and watching this video, okay? Anyway, you guys take care, and thank you so much for being a part of this channel. Take care until the next video.